Welcome to the Sunday Signal. I'm David Richards. This is the weekly newsletter and podcast I write covering AI disruption, the future of work, UK innovation, and the economics that actually matter underneath all of it. I'm an entrepreneur, the co-founder of Yorkshire AI Labs, and I write a weekly column for the Yorkshire Post. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, thank you. Today's title is Light the Grid, and the British company that might break the AI energy trade. 3 stories today: Photons, Power, Britain. The headline tracker numbers before we begin. Year to date, around 444,250 jobs cut across tech and broader corporate. 18,800 announced this week alone. And the most senior banking executive in the world to use the phrase lower value human capital out loud was forced into a memo by Wednesday lunchtime. We'll come back to that. If you'd like to read this issue rather than listen, or just have it in your inbox every Sunday, subscribe at thesundaysignal.ai. That's thesundaysignal.ai. It's free. Before we begin, if you're listening on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or on YouTube, do me one small favor, hit follow. 10 seconds, and it tells the algorithm this show is worth surfacing to other people who think about the same questions. Thank you. Right, let's get into it. Bottom line, up front. The entire AI story this decade has rested on a single assumption, that the machine is fixed, the energy bill is rising, and the only choice left is whether to build more power stations or accept the limit. That assumption is wrong. A company in Oxford has the receipts to prove it. The implications run further than the data center. They reach the trillions of dollars currently sitting on the bet that AI will burn through everything we can generate. And they reach the British question this newsletter has been worrying at for months. Can we this time keep the thing we invented? Section 1. The AI energy crisis is a physics problem in an economics costume. Every argument about AI and power ends in the same place. Demand doubles by 2030. The grid cannot carry it. Build more, burn more, hope the curve bends. That is a supply argument. It assumes the machine is fixed and the only variable is how much we feed it. It is the wrong argument. The energy problem is not really about supply, it is about what we built the machine out of. A chip computes by pushing electrons through transistors and switching them on and off billions of times a second. Every switch costs energy. Moving the data between memory and processor costs more energy than the sums themselves. Almost all of it leaves as heat. That is why a modern AI data center spends a punishing share of its power not on thinking, but on staying cool. The electron is a workhorse that throws off heat with every step. We have spent 60 years making it take smaller steps. We are running out of room. Photons do not behave that way. Light moving through an optical component does not dissipate heat the way a switching transistor does. The heaviest single job in AI inference is matrix multiplication, the same arithmetic over and over at vast scale. That job maps almost exactly onto what light does without being forced. The company at the center of this issue is called Lumai. It is a spin-out from the University of Oxford, headquartered in Oxford. Last month it launched a server called Iris Nova. By its own account, it is the only system in the world running billion-parameter large language models on optical compute, currently doing real-time inference on Meta's Llama 8B and 70B. I sat down this week with its chief executive, Dr. Xianxin Guo, to ask the questions readers of this newsletter actually care about: power, cost, speed of adoption, and whether Britain keeps it. His one-line answer, in language any data center operator would recognize: 90% less energy, 10% of the cost, more AI tokens out of the same hall. That 90% translated. Less power means less cooling, smaller power supplies, less of the secondary plant that quietly drinks a material share of a data center's electricity. But Guo is honest about what the figure actually buys you. He said, and I quote, "What this is likely to mean in practice is more compute capacity within the same power budget." End quote. The energy saving does not collapse the energy bill. It expands the amount of intelligence the same energy bill can produce. He was open about why Jevons paradox is real, he told me, and we will see more AI used, not less. This is the part the optimists tend to leave out. Efficiency does not bend the curve, it steepens it. The grid still has to grow. What changes is what we get for it. On cost, his answer was sharper: cost per token. That is the only metric that matters to an operator running this at scale, not cost per server, not cost per box, cost per token. The figure is a blend of equipment capital cost and the capital cost of the data center that hosts it. The capital question. Lumai has raised about $15 million. American rivals carry war chests 40 times that. Guo's answer is that the architecture itself bends the capital problem. They are not building custom silicon at the leading chip node, because most of the hard computation is performed in optics. The architecture is lens-based and three-dimensional, rather than integrated photonics on a chip. Weights are encoded on an electronic display, and the calculation happens as light passes through it. The supply chain leans on mature, high-volume components, the kind of optics and displays that are already manufactured at industrial scale, customized for the use but not invented from scratch. They have just opened the next round, on adoption. Iris Nova is in the hands of evaluators now, 18 to 24 months from first evaluation to production, at scale, at a hyperscaler. The true blocker, Guo said, is not the technology, it is validation. The first real deployment will be a cluster in a national laboratory. And critically, the form factor. Iris Nova is an Ethernet-attached appliance. It drops into a standard rack. It runs alongside existing GPUs, rather than replacing them. Same frameworks, same models. No rewrite, nobody's being asked to rip NVIDIA out. The most quietly striking line in the whole conversation had nothing to do with chips. Guo was head of research before he became chief executive last year. I asked him what he had to unlearn. He said, a decision made in a week with 70% certainty beats a decision made in 3 months with 95% certainty. A British deep tech founder who has read the room about why British deep tech keeps losing. The full interview is published on Substack today. Go to theSundaySignal.ai. Section 2, What happens to the grid if nothing changes? The International Energy Agency puts global data center electricity consumption at roughly 415 terawatt hours in 2024. It projects this to more than double, to around 945 terawatt hours by 2030. Goldman Sachs research projects a 165% total increase in data center power demand between 2023 and 2030. McKinsey estimates the global investment needed to physically build that capacity at nearly $7 trillion before the decade is out. Standard IT racks have drawn 10 to 15 kilowatts for years. AI-optimized racks now push past 40. A single next-generation AI campus currently under construction will demand around 20 times the power of a typical hyperscale site. The British picture is sharper. Industry estimates put UK data centers at around 6% of electricity consumption. The House of Commons Library 2025 briefing gives a lower figure of 2.5%. Either way, the trajectory is steep. The National Energy System Operator projects a 4-fold increase in data center electricity demand by 2030. Some forecasts go to 5-fold. The Department for Science, Innovation and Technology has had to revise its forecast for greenhouse gas emissions from AI data centers upward by a factor of 100, not by a percent, by a multiple. Some UK data center developers are now being quoted grid connection wait times of up to 10 years. That is not a forecast, that is a cue. If the architectural shift we have been describing happens at scale by 2028, the forecasts above stop being inevitable. 2 scenarios open up. Scenario 1, the reprieve. If global AI token demand grows at exactly the rate current economic models project, the IEA's 945 terawatt-hour figure never gets reached. Demand plateaus inside the existing envelope. The 10-year UK grid connection queue loses one of its biggest accelerants. Scenario 2, the Jevons explosion. We still hit 945 terawatt hours because efficiency releases demand, but we get 50 times the AI intelligence out of it. The total power bill looks the same. The cost per token collapses toward a level that rewrites the economics of inference. Every operator still running legacy silicon is suddenly competing on infrastructure economics they cannot win. Guo's own answer pointed firmly at scenario 2. The history of every previous efficiency revolution in computing points the same way. The energy bill rarely shrinks. The work the energy buys multiplies. Either scenario makes one specific category of investor wrong about a great deal of money. Section 3. The trillion-dollar trade built on a single assumption. Wall Street has spent 2 years pricing one outcome into the market, that hyperscalers, locked into a brute force scaling race against each other, would buy raw electricity at any premium because they had no choice. The whole AI energy trade rests on that single load-bearing thesis. If photonics breaks the assumption, the financial consequences are not gentle. 4 exposures matter. Utilities currently trading at historically elevated multiples on AI-driven demand growth. Thermal management firms whose entire business case is built on the heat that silicon throws off. Copper, the commodity proxy for grid expansion. And the optical supply chain, the picks and shovels nobody has identified yet. I am not in the business of giving investment advice. I am in the business of pointing out when a market is priced for a future that one British company is currently building the alternative to. Section 4. Why Lumai must stay a British company. This is the part of the story this newsletter cares about most, because we have watched it play out before. DeepMind, 2014, sold to Google for around £400 million. Pre-revenue, it became the foundation of what is now Google DeepMind, Vocal IQ, 2015, Apple, the intelligence inside Siri, Magic Pony Technology, 2016, Twitter 2 years after starting, with Innovate UK taxpayer money in it, Latent Logic, 2019, Alphabet's Waymo. That is the soft pattern. The harder pattern is more recent. In September 2025, Oxford Ionics, the trapped ion quantum computing spin-out, was acquired by the US-listed IonQ for $1.075 billion, the highest value Oxford quantum exit in history. The founders are expected to stay in Oxford. The intellectual property, the headquarters, the future market capitalization, and the corporate tax base now belong to a Maryland company. In the same announcement, IonQ also bought Vector Atomic, a quantum sensing firm with more than $200 million in US defense contracts. Britain handed a sovereign-grade quantum capability to a defense-adjacent American competitor and clapped. The fundamental issue is not invention. Britain invents prolifically. The fundamental issue is scaling capital. When the moment comes to write the check that takes a company from breakthrough to market dominance, the British check is either not there or not large enough. American capital is. The technology, the headquarters, the tax base, and the strategic capability follow the check. This is what economists call the public risk foreign reward deficit. Guo knows all of this. When I asked him plainly if Lumai stays British, his answer was the one this newsletter has been waiting to hear. Where the company is built is the question that matters, he said, and the answer is the UK, headquartered in Oxford. R&D in Oxford, senior team in Oxford, US hires for sales, because that is where the customers are. His specific demand of the British state was equally clear, not subsidy, procurement, a committed UK government anchor purchase of Lumai Iris server hardware into the AI research resource. Concrete orders from a sovereign customer, he said, do more for keeping the company here than any number of strategy papers. The instruments exist. Area's Scaling Inference Lab is a real testbed for novel AI hardware. The Sovereign AI programme has £500 million behind British AI companies trying to scale. The Department for Science, Innovation and Technology has a £100 million package that explicitly positions government as a first customer for high-quality UK AI hardware. The question is whether they get deployed in time, or whether a year from now we will be reading the press release announcing Lumai's acquisition by an American hyperscaler. This is not hostile to America. This is observable to anyone with a chronology and an attention span. Now the tracker, week 21, 17th to 23rd of May, 2026. The year-to-date total, around 444,250 cuts across tech and broader corporate. Tech-specific year-to-date, around 142,800, announced and executed this week, around 18,800, including multi-year targets and rolling cuts. This week the mask slipped, Standard Chartered, the headline entry. The bank announced a phased target to eliminate roughly 7,800 corporate and support roles, 15% of that division, by 2030, fund an aggressive AI integration. The headcount was not the story, the language was. Chief Executive Bill Winters told investors the bank was replacing, quote, lower value human capital, end quote, with the bank's investment in technology and AI. The backlash was instant. Winters issued a Wednesday memo trying to walk it back. The phrase, he told staff, had been taken out of context. The role losses, he wrote, reflected the changing nature of the work, not the value of the people doing it. The Wednesday memo is corporate laundering. The investor call was the unvarnished reality of the 2026 boardroom. The most critical takeaway is geographic. The cuts are disproportionately targeted at Standard Chartered's major back-office hubs, Chennai, Bengaluru, Kuala Lumpur, Warsaw. This signals the death of the defining corporate strategy of the last quarter century, labor arbitrage. For decades, Western corporations saved billions by shipping administrative tasks to business process outsourcing centers in Asia and Eastern Europe. In 2026, the maths has flipped. Running an AI agent on a localized server is now cheaper than paying an offshore human analyst. AI does not require a desk. It does not sleep. It does not care about time zones. 3 more entries this week. Intuit. The AI flush. On the 20th of May, the financial software giant announced the elimination of around 3,000 jobs, 17% of its workforce. Textbook AI native restructure. Clear out legacy overhead. Rehire directly into AI engineering and product roles. Meta, the execution phase. The mega layoff Zuckerberg announced earlier this month began on the 20th of May. 8,000 roles, 10% of the workforce. Capital freed up to fund the company's $135 billion AI infrastructure build-out, June Analytics. The Web3 pivot, 25% of staff cut this week. Stated rationale, a strategic pivot toward, quote, AI and institutional on-chain data, end quote. When a Web3 startup and a colonial-era British bank cite the same technological driver to slash headcount in the same week, it stops being a coincidence. It is a sector-agnostic law of physics. High probability targets for week 22. The global IT services giants, Standard Chartered, just fired a warning shot directly over the bow of the major Indian IT hubs. TCS, Infosys, Wipro, now in acute danger. If their Western banking clients are successfully automating their own back-office compliance functions, the outsourcing contracts that sustain these IT giants will dry up. Expect defensive, margin-protecting layoffs from the BPO sector to accelerate immediately. Mid-tier financial compliance. Any vendor built around providing human-in-the-loop KYC and AML verification is operating on borrowed time. Final thought. We have spent 3 years arguing about how to feed the machine. More power stations, more grid, more money set on fire to keep the lights on in the server hall. The more useful question was always the quieter one, not how much energy the machine needs, but what we chose to build it out of. One answer is sitting in a laboratory in Oxford. The chief executive is a physicist who decided he would rather build the company than watch someone else buy it. He has told the British state, in public, what would keep him here. He has put a number on it, a date on it, and a program on it. There is no possible defense for not hearing him. His closing instruction to any policymaker reading this newsletter did not bother with diplomacy. Advanced procurement of UK-built AI hardware into the AI research resource and the growth infrastructure program this financial year. Or watch the next generation of AI compute be created outside of the UK again this financial year. Not the next strategy review, not the next white paper. This one, the bank in this week's tracker called its own people lower value capital. The British company at the top of this issue offered a way to make the machine that replaces them use a fraction of the energy. The cut and the fix are the same story. The only question left is who gets to own the fix. Britain has watched DeepMind, Magic Pony, Vocal IQ, Latent Logic, and Oxford Ionics walk out of the door. Light is the next one. Buy the thing or read the press release. That's it for this week. If today's episode said something you want other people to hear, send it to one of them, share it on LinkedIn, forward it. That's how this show grows. And if you're new here, the full newsletter is at thesundaysignal.ai. That's thesundaysignal.ai. Free every Sunday. This is The Sunday Signal. Until next Sunday, I'm David Richards.